Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is Best Left Buried by SoulMuppet Publishing. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in 2018, Best Left Buried is a 56-page small format softback book that purports to test not only the characters' mettle, but also their sanity as they journey into the crypt, a place crawling with bizarre monsters, strange environments and eldritch magic. This book also says that it contains all of the rules within to run the game for both the players and the Doomsayer, the game's take on the classic DM. Right to the cover. Here we have a quite evocative piece by Ben Brown that I feel succeeds in setting the mood for what is contained within. Okay, to the inside. We're greeted with a single page of flavour text which talks about the dusty ruins of broken civilizations left for eons, with their remaining servants existing as twisted versions of their former selves, descending into barbarism due to their isolation. It mentions hungry gods sleeping in forgotten temples, uncaring chthonic deities beyond human understanding that drive those that perceive them into madness. It then goes on to discuss the strange folk who explore these ruins, known as crypt diggers. These are all kinds of adventurer, knights, wizards, etc., and are all grim and determined, seeking fortune. The crypt takes these brave fools and leads them to death and madness. Following this, we have an introduction from the authors, a few acknowledgements, and then it moves on to making a character. It recommends beginning with a name and building the character around that. Best Left Buried has 3 stats, brawn, wit and will, with brawn representing physical strength and endurance, wit representing both physical and mental agility, and will representing the power of the mind. Beginning characters start with +2 in one stat, +1 in another, and +0 in the third. These can be reduced by insanity, mutation and mutilation. They have 2 further stats, or rather pools that measure survival, vigour and grip. Vigour is equal to 6 plus your brawn modifier and are essentially hit points, and grip is a mixture of sanity, stamina and mana, used as a resource for rerolls or character advancement. This starts as 4 plus your will. It then moves on to the character archetypes that are in the game. Each of the archetypes have been designed to be pick up and play, and has abilities relevant to their approach. There is the Believer, who is a holy person guided by the voice of the gods, the Kabbalist, one who has had terrifying experiences with the otherworldly, so traumatic that they're able to shrug off things that would drive others insane. There is the Cutthroat, an unsavoury criminal type, and Dastards, who are similarly charlatans and tricksters that pass as lovable rogues. There's the Everyman, someone who is able to generally get by without dying, and who is flexible in their skills. We have the Freeblade, a financially oriented mercenary type who can usually find work, and the Outcast, those who turn to a life of adventure because they don't fit in anywhere else. There's also the Protagonist, someone who fights for honour in a world of moral greys, and the Scholar, a bookish seeker of forbidden knowledge who have damaged minds. And finally, the Veteran, masters of the crypt who are experienced and can sense oncoming danger. We have information on equipment, including a toolkit of useful things that will help adventurers survive a little bit longer in the crypt, as well as specific examples of where equipment makes impossible skill checks possible. This is followed by information on the weapons and Best Left Buried, by type and which stats are used to determine hits, etc., and touches on strange weapon types such as whips and the main gauche. Similarly, it touches upon gunpowder weapons, should your DM or Doomsayer allow them. It then moves to the basics of shields and armour. After another aside, accompanied by a bit of strange artwork, it moves on to advancements. Experience is gathered through play, finding treasure, passing grip checks and being smart. When a player hits 8 experience, it resets to 0 and they level up. This involves gaining an advancement, 1 vigour and 1 grip. The advancements are flavoured towards particular archetypes, however this is a guideline and you could take one if you could justify it, the example being given that Battle Frenzy is a martial advancement, but you could claim the rage was spiritual in origin and give it to a religious background character. Some advancements have types, such as Arcane, Devious, Holy or Martial, and different types of advancements unlock after a character has gained 4. All characters gain a journeyman advancement when they start their career. These are essentially skills or powers that allow them to do something interesting, such as Arcane Wards, which allows a character to spend grip to reduce damage, or Eldritch Pact, which grants them world-bending powers at the cost of their sanity, and they slowly become corrupted. There's Fire and Lightning Strange, which allows the character to wield the elements by force of will. You get the idea. Scattered throughout these advancements you will find the specific mechanic, the upper hand and its opposite against the odds. These are essentially the advantage-disadvantage of Best Left Buried. These are covered in the next chapter, Playing the Game. Here it describes how things are resolved. The basic mechanic is a stat check. These cover situations where they have a chance of failure, things like shrugging off poison, dodging a dragon's breath and the like, and to resolve this, the player rolls 2d6 and adds their relevant stat modifier. A 9 or greater is a success. The upper hand allows the player to roll 3d6 and discard the lowest, and conversely, against the odds mean they roll 3d6 and discard the highest. Instances of either cancel each other out. The example they give is a character with a crowbar opening a door with rotten wood, who has the upper hand twice due to this. However, the door is blocked and in water, which gives 2 instances of against the odds. These cancel each other out. If something else gave the upper hand or against the odds, however many were left after all were cancelled would apply. 3 instances of the upper hand make the check trivial, and no roll is required. Similarly, 3 instances of against the odds make the task impossible. It also stresses that common sense should always prevail, and that if the Doomsayer says no, their word is final. It covers observation checks, which are actually fairly involved, though resolved in the same way, and then we move on to combat. Time is divided into rounds, which are about 10 seconds long. During a round, a player has a turn determined by their initiative. This is rolled on a d3 with the character's wit modifier and any other from advancements or adaptations. These are essentially advancements for monsters. The highest roll goes first. We have some further talk on surprise and zones with regard to who can attack who and the whens and wheres, and then it moves on to turns. A character can move and take a single action. Attack, move again, escape, use advancement, finish him, or do something else. Attacks are rolled on 3d6 and the player needs to hit a target number, usually between 7 and 11. If any 2 of the 3d6 with the stat added exceed the target number, the third dice is taken as damage to the target's vigour pool. Less than this equals nothing. Upper hand gives you 4d6, discard the lowest, and against the odds is 4d6, drop the highest. Trivial attacks hit automatically, and 2d6 are rolled with the highest being the damage dealt. Impossible attacks have no effect. If the damage is a 6, it's a critical hit and that deals an injury as well as damage. Multiple monsters have an attack option called Gang Up, which gives them an instance of the upper hand for each attacker beyond the first. If 4 or more monsters are attacking, it becomes trivial, meaning even the strongest fighters can be overwhelmed, though there are advancements to combat this. It gives some rules on escape by using wit as a fairly fitting mechanic and then goes into dying. When vigour is reduced to 0, you flip a coin. Tails, they die. That's it. Otherwise, they're unconscious. Returning to the world in d6 hours with an injury and an insanity. If they're revived, they gain a point of vigour and may spend points of grip to gain vigour points up to 6 times at a rate of 1 to 1. The finish him action kills an unconscious character instantly. This can only be prevented by a heroic rescue. There's also an exertion mechanic that allows the character to use grip to reroll dice. Grip checks are the same as others but use will and have a target of 9. Failure loses 1 point of grip. It also gives rules on resting where the amount of vigour regained is dependent on the quality of the rest. It briefly considers status conditions such as blinded, deafened and the like, and has some really simple grappling rules and then moves into weird rules. The idea behind Best Left Buried is that the Doomsayer is encouraged to improvise where necessary and create subsystems to deal with them. It gives some good examples of this with things like darkness, falling and drowning, though why these are thought of as weird rules is a bit of a puzzler. Next up is Chapter 5, Consequences. This is what happens to those who are broken by the crypt. It gives some further discussion on grip and how being reduced to 0 is equally as dangerous as your vigour being reduced to 0, as it involves them becoming a completely insane gibbering mess, dying of a heart attack, or losing the will to live and running headlong into danger. It does, however, give a nice version which involves less consequences. Consequences are developed to prevent a character from running out of grip. There are 3: injuries, insanities, and corruptions, of which the last one is annoyingly only available in the deluxe version of this book. Taking an injury voluntarily restores your grip to 5. Taking a critical hit results in an injury and does not grant extra grip. The injuries are listed in the table here and are mostly fairly nasty. Taking a random insanity instantly resets your grip to 10 and should be thematically appropriate. It talks about the in-game effects of them. They're divided into 2 camps, character flaws and growing madness. Character flaws rely on delusion and are socially implemented. Growing madness revolves around grip checks. Some are triggered effects such as Silver Fingers, which is activated whenever the character sees something they can easily steal, and others are modifiable triggers which are based around reliving events such as places or certain types of monster. We have a fair few of them detailed over the pages that follow. The final chapter is around monsters. The premise of Best Left Buried is to make the monsters flavourful and gives us examples of a simple group of skeletons described with flourish and grandeur. It also advises letting your players name the monsters and that nothing should be standard, and holds to the idea that you should make your own crazy monsters to keep your players guessing. It goes over a set of guidelines for building monsters and includes some adaptations to make them unique, such as amorphous, blinking, flying, hulking and razor-clawed. There are plenty of options available for the budding crypt keeper to get their teeth into. Best Left Buried is a game that I would describe as having potential. It has a fairly decent set of mechanics for the players to get their heads around, and the character archetypes are interesting enough to draw you in, but I do feel that the book is lacking in a few areas. The idea of the crypt is an interesting one, but at least for me, it's just a bit too vague. The book leaves a lot of work at the Doomsayer's feet just to get things up and running. The monster section doesn't give you a single example of a sample monster to run with. Physically the book's okay, though it does seem to scratch really easily, which for some will lend itself to the experience and others annoy them. The art is a mixed bag. Those pictures that have black backgrounds are by and large really good and evocative, whereas the line drawings are sometimes good and otherwise look a bit strange, with people occasionally having weird body proportions. Best Left Buried seems to take great pride in being a game that draws you to your doom, which is fine in the short term, but the difficulty here could be maintaining a level of enthusiasm over long periods. Other games that have sanity mechanics generally tend to wear you down over a longer period of time, whereas Best Left Buried can dish out crippling insanity fairly easily. Luckily, the character creation is quite straightforward and quick to do. I think it is a system that will lend itself well to convention play. The character advancements are interesting, with the little in-game asides providing good context as to the effect that they have, and the upper hand and against the odds can obviously be compared to advantage and disadvantage in a sense, which is no bad thing. There was one thing that did annoy me throughout: the references to the deluxe edition. Knowing that there are things cut out that are only available in a premium product doesn't help when trying to wrap your head around the system, and in all honesty, why would you buy this book knowing this? I think maybe a better approach would have been to explain the bits that are left out, give a few small examples, and then say that there is more available in the deluxe set. Another issue I had is with the layout. We have references to the upper hand and the like before we even know what that is, so for those that like to read a book in page order rather than flicking about, it can be a bit irritating. Though I think it is fair to say the book layout is not an easy nut to crack, and I don't pretend to know the best approach. As I initially said, Best Left Buried is, at least to me, a game with potential. I think with some interesting scenarios to set the scene, this could end up being an excellent game. It's fairly rules light and sets its stall from the start, and to be fair, the PDF is actually quite cheap for what you get. I'd give Best Left Buried a 7 out of 10. However, I think with more development this could easily get a better score. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I've put some links below. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.